In the bustling heart of 1930s Paris, Henri, a skilled and charismatic safecracker, leads a life filled with thrilling nighttime escapades. However, his fate takes a grim turn when he is wrongfully accused of a murder he did not commit. Convicted on shaky grounds and without solid evidence, Henri is sentenced to life imprisonment and shipped off to serve time far from the world he knows, in the harsh penal colony of French Guiana. As the ship carrying him away from the French coast cuts through the waves, Henri realizes that it will take more than his lock-picking skills to survive. His firm resolve not to be broken by fate is the only light in the growing darkness around him. With each wave crashing against the ship, his hopes and dreams of freedom seem increasingly distant. Yet his determination to not be defeated by an unjust system fuels every thought and action, preparing him for the battles to come in the suffocating and brutal jungle of the penal colony. There, in a place where survival depends on much more than sheer will, Henri is about to test his true limits and find unexpected allies. Upon arriving in French Guiana, Henri is thrust into a world defined by ruthless guards and harsh environmental conditions. The penal colony, surrounded by dense jungle and the unforgiving ocean, offers no escape. The prisoners, including Henri, face grueling labor under the sweltering sun, their lives reduced to survival day by day. Henri quickly learns the harsh realities of colony life. Food is scarce, the heat is oppressive, and the work is backbreaking. Despite these brutal conditions, he refuses to give up his inner fight for freedom. He observes everything, plans silently, and waits for any opportunity. His resilience draws the attention of other prisoners, and among them is Louis, a mild-mannered forger who sees in Henri a glimmer of hope for escape. Louis, who is physically weaker but intellectually sharp, offers Henri a deal. He possesses valuable skills that could aid in their escape, but lacks the physical strength to survive on his own. Henri, understanding the potential benefits of this partnership, agrees to protect Louis in exchange for his help in planning an escape. Together, they begin to plot their freedom, weaving their dreams amidst the despair that surrounds them. As days turn into weeks, Henri and Louis grow closer, their bond forged by shared adversity. They exchange stories of their past lives, their families, and the freedoms they once took for granted. This camaraderie becomes their sanctuary, a mental escape from the physical prison walls that confine them. Yet, as they lay their plans, the ever-watchful eyes of the guards and the unpredictable nature of other desperate inmates threatens to unravel their fragile hopes at any moment. Henri learns to navigate the perilous social hierarchy of the colony, using his charisma and intelligence to maintain their safety and keep their escape plans secret. After months of meticulous planning and gathering scarce resources, Henri and Louis decide it's time to put their escape plan into action. Under the cover of a moonless night, they, along with a small group of trusted inmates, silently slip away from their barracks. Their hearts race with a mix of fear and excitement as they navigate through the shadows, avoiding the guards' watchful eyes. Their plan is simple yet perilous. They aim to reach the dense jungle surrounding the colony and use the darkness to cover their tracks until they can find a safe passage to civilization. However, the jungle is as unforgiving as the prison, filled with treacherous terrain and lethal wildlife. Henri leads the group, using the skills he honed as a safecracker to navigate and solve problems on the fly. Louis, despite his frailty, keeps up, driven by the sheer will to be free. As dawn approaches, their initial hope turns to despair when they hear the distant sounds of alarms. The guards have discovered their absence. With renewed urgency, they push forward, but the jungle seems endless. Exhaustion begins to set in, and the reality of their situation weighs heavily on them. Suddenly, they encounter a patrol. The confrontation is swift and brutal. Despite their desperate resistance, they are outnumbered and outgunned. Henri and Louis, along with the others, are captured. They are dragged back to the colony, their spirits crushed by the failure of their attempt. The consequences are severe. Henri is thrown into solitary confinement as punishment. The small, dark cell becomes his new reality, where he is left alone with his thoughts and the haunting memories of freedom that was almost within reach. The isolation is meant to break him, to strip him of his resolve and force him into submission. Henri's time in solitary confinement is a profound test of his mental and physical endurance. The small, dark cell is devoid of any human interaction or the sight of the sky. Days and nights blend into a timeless haze, marked only by the scant light filtering through a tiny, barred window. The silence is suffocating, broken only by the distant sounds of guards and the occasional cries of other inmates losing their grasp on sanity. In these extreme conditions, Henri retreats into his mind, revisiting memories of his past life and the freedom he once enjoyed. He clings to these recollections as a source of strength, using them to stave off the creeping despair and isolation. To keep his mind sharp, he mentally rehearses escape plans, solves complex problems, and even replays chess games he had played on the streets of Paris. However, physical survival is equally challenging. The food is meager and often barely edible. Water is scarce, and the constant dampness of the cells chills him to the bone. Henri exercises as much as the cramped space allows, doing push-ups and pacing the tiny cell to maintain his physical strength. Through this ordeal, Henri's resolve hardens rather than breaks. He realizes that his spirit is not confined by the physical walls around him. This revelation becomes a turning point, fueling his determination to not only survive, but also escape once more. He vows that if given another chance, he would not waste it. The long months in solitary eventually end, but they leave Henri changed. He emerges thinner, tougher, and more determined than ever. His eyes, once filled with the light of mischief, now burn with a quiet intensity. His resolve to escape and reclaim his freedom is stronger, fueled by the harsh lessons learned in the darkness of solitary confinement. Renewed by a fierce resolve, Henri, once released from solitary confinement, wastes no time reconnecting with Louis. Together, they quickly rekindle their plans for escape, this time with a more complex and daring strategy. They recruit a few more inmates, each with skills that complement their needs. A navigator who once sailed the Caribbean, a former soldier with survival skills, and a quiet thief who knows how to move silently. Their new plan involves a stolen key to a supply boat scheduled to dock at the colony for a brief period. The boat, if they can reach it, promises not just escape from the island, but a chance to sail to a neighboring country. The risks are immense. Being caught would mean certain death, or at worst, a return to the horrors of solitary confinement. But for Henri and his makeshift crew, the risk is worth the shimmer of freedom on the horizon. The night of their attempt, the group moves with precision. Dressed in dark clothes, they evade the guards' patrols, using the shadows as their ally. Henri and the former soldier neutralize a guard silently, obtaining his keys. With adrenaline surging through their veins, they make their way to the docks, where the boat sways gently in the moonlight. Their hearts pound as they board the boat, start the engine quietly, and begin to navigate away from the cursed shores of the penal colony. For a moment, freedom seems tantalizingly close. However, as they steer into the open waters, a searchlight sweeps over the water. A guard has spotted them. Gunshots echo in the night as they duck for cover, steering the boat with desperate haste. The chase is intense, but the darkness of the night works in their favor. After tense hours that feel like an eternity, they finally lose their pursuers. As dawn breaks, the shoreline of the colony fades into the distance, and a mix of relief and joy washes over them. After their harrowing escape from the guards and navigating the treacherous waters, Henri and his group find refuge on Devil's Island, a small, rugged island off the coast of the main penal colony. The island, notorious for its harsh conditions and rocky terrain, is uninhabited and offers no easy sustenance. Here, the true test of their survival skills begins. The group quickly realizes that their new environment demands immediate action. They begin by constructing a rudimentary shelter using the dense foliage and whatever materials they salvage from their escape. Henri, ever resourceful, takes the lead, directing the efforts and ensuring that everyone contributes. The former soldier teaches them how to set traps for small animals, and the navigator uses his knowledge of the stars to help predict the weather, crucial for their survival. Water, however, poses a significant challenge. The island has no fresh water sources, so they collect rainwater and, in dire times, distill seawater using a makeshift solar still. Food is scarce, and their diet soon consists mainly of fish caught from the surrounding waters and whatever fruits and roots they can forage. Henri's leadership and the group's collective skills keep them alive, but the psychological toll of their isolation wears on them. Henri keeps morale high by reminding them of their freedom and the lives they dream of rebuilding. At night, they share stories of their past, each tale a reminder of their individual reasons for risking everything to escape. Months pass, and the initial elation of their escape gives way to the grueling reality of their situation. Henri, realizing they cannot survive indefinitely on the island, starts planning their final move, to build a raft capable of open sea navigation. This plan, fueled by desperation and ingenuity, becomes their last hope to reach a place where they can truly be free. With their situation growing increasingly dire and the realization that they could not survive indefinitely on Devil's Island, Henri and his group begin their most ambitious project yet, constructing a raft capable of navigating the open sea. Using driftwood, remnants of their initial escape boat, and ropes made from vines, they craft a rudimentary yet seaworthy raft. Their plan is to reach the mainland of South America, where they hope to blend into the local population and finally taste true freedom. The construction of the raft requires every ounce of their collective skill and determination. Henri, always the leader, motivates everyone to push beyond their limits. The navigator plots their course, using his knowledge of currents and tides, while the others gather food and fresh water for the journey. Despite their exhaustion and the ever-present threat of discovery by patrol boats, the group's spirit remains unbroken, their eyes fixed on the horizon. The day of their departure arrives with a mix of fear and excitement. As they push the raft into the ocean, their hearts are heavy with the knowledge that failure would mean death or capture. Yet their desire for freedom drives them forward. They paddle vigorously, guided by the stars and the navigator's steady hand. After days of relentless rowing, battling storms and surging waves, land finally appears in the distance. Their joy is palpable, but their journey is not over yet. As they approach the shore, they encounter local fishermen who, sensing their desperation, agree to help them in exchange for the little they have left. Upon setting foot on the mainland, the group disperses, blending into the bustling life of small coastal villages. Henri, his dream of freedom realized, takes a moment to reflect on his journey. The taste of freedom, hard-earned and fraught with peril, is sweeter than he ever imagined. Now living freely, Henri takes time to reflect on his harrowing journey from the dark cells of the penal colony to the sunlit shores of freedom. The challenges he faced, the bonds he formed, and the lessons he learned during his ordeal have profoundly shaped him. Freedom, he realizes, is more than just the absence of physical confinement. It's a state of mind that requires constant vigilance and courage. Henri finds work as a handyman in a small village, where his story, though known to a few, is kept secret out of respect and perhaps a shared desire for liberty among the locals. As he repairs roofs and mends fences, he also rebuilds his life, finding peace in simple tasks and the natural beauty around him. Yet the scars of his past are never far from his thoughts. He often thinks of Louis and the others who shared his quest for freedom. Each had their own path to follow once they reached the mainland. And while they occasionally exchange covert messages, their lives have diverged. Henri cherishes these connections, recognizing them as the family forged not by blood, but by shared adversity and hope. Looking back, Henri understands that his fight for freedom was not just against physical barriers, but against the injustices that put him behind bars unjustly. He becomes quietly involved in supporting others who face similar plights, using his experience to guide and inspire those still bound by unfair circumstances. In his quiet moments, Henri writes down his experiences, not just as a memoir, but as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. His reflections serve as a reminder that freedom is precious and fragile, and it is the responsibility of those who have it to safeguard it, not just for themselves, but for all who seek it. As the sun sets on another day of freedom, Henri knows that while his journey was marked by incredible challenges, it ultimately led him to a deeper understanding of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.